Welcome to a special episode of Humans Outside for the Wear Blue Run to Remember Allied Forces Run with Amazon Global Military. Now, usually on Humans Outside, you hear tips, tricks, and insights for making the most of the whole life benefits of heading into nature wherever you are, starting with the challenge of simply getting outside every day for 20 minutes. But today's episode is a little different. So let's go. November 11th is Veterans Day in the U.S. and Remembrance Day in the United Kingdom and Canada. And so, in partnership with Wear Blue Run to Remember and the Warriors at Amazon Employee Affinity Group, this episode has the inspiration you need to take purposeful steps to both honor our veterans and remember the sacrifice of those that were lost in military service, no matter where you are. I'm Amy Buschatz. With Wear Blue Run to Remember, I invite you to join Warriors at Amazon today in a global Allied Forces Run to Remember. Wherever you are in the world, hit the street, trail, or sidewalk outside for a 5K run or walk, or hop on a treadmill. All steps matter as you move forward with purpose to honor the fallen, fighting, and families. And if you can't get purposeful steps in right now, you can always come back to this episode for a run later since it's not going anywhere. Or you can stick around and listen regardless of whether you're running or not. This episode is going to be packed with inspirational stories and remembrances of service. Now, if you're a Humans Outside podcast listener, you might be familiar with Wear Blue because you heard my interview with co-founder Lisa Hallett back in season 1. And of course, you know we start all of our regular Humans Outside episodes with a type of scene setting as we hear about our guests' favorite outdoor space and imagine ourselves there, hanging out and having a conversation. Today, instead of that, we're going to intention set for this Allied Forces Run Walk by hosting a virtual Wear Blue Circle of Remembrance. You'll hear more about Wear Blue and background on what that looks like at in-person events from Lisa here in a minute. But we want to get you moving today, so let's have a virtual circle now. Dave Leach, Wear Blue's director of the active duty for the fighting program, is going to walk us through that. Dave, welcome to Humans Outside. Would you please lead this circle of remembrance for us now?
Yeah, absolutely. So this morning we're gathered, much like we do in communities all across the country, to recognize the fallen servicemen and women from 2001, 9/11, 2001. And we do that by first having a moment of silence, and then we'll go around the circle and call out the names for whom we are running for. But before that, I think it's important to recognize the mission of Wear Blue Run to Remember, and that is to honor the service and sacrifice of the American military. And we do that by recognizing three distinct but intertwined pillars. First, the fallen, those men and women who have sacrificed their lives in service to our country. The second is the fighting, those men and women that are continuing to serve in our nation's armed forces. And finally, the families of the fallen and the families of those still serving, who are truly the bedrock foundational strength of the military. And today, as we think about the names that we're going to call out, it certainly means something very different to the family members of the fallen service members. So it's an honor for us to be able to do that and remember them here today. So we'll go ahead and take a moment of silence before we call out our names. As we begin our run or walk, I just encourage you to reflect on the name that you called out or thought of in your mind, and just remember that your active participation today and your steps are purposeful in honoring and remembering them. Run strong, run to remember.
Okay, if you're ready to start a walk or run, go and head out now. And as you move forward with purpose, or maybe just listen in on today's Allied Forces Run to Remember, Lisa is going to introduce us to Wear Blue Run to Remember. Lisa, welcome to this special edition of Humans Outside for the 2022 Allied Forces Run to Remember. Would you start by telling us about Wear Blue Run to Remember?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Amy. Wear Blue Run to Remember is a global community that honors the service and sacrifice of the American military through active remembrance. And this all started back in 2009 when my husband's unit, 5th Stryker Brigade, deployed to southern Afghanistan. It proved to be an incredibly challenging deployment in which we lost 41 soldiers, to include my husband. My husband, Captain John Hallett, was killed 6 weeks into the deployment and only 3 weeks after our daughter Heidi was born. As a community, we were struggling. Not just families like mine who had lost their hero, the entire community was looking for the space to remember our friends, our loved ones, our community. And so we put on our sneakers, met in the Burger King parking lot, and went for a run around the airfield. And at first, we didn't come together because we were best friends or because we loved running, but we came together out of this really raw need to heal, to grieve, to connect, to remember. We continued on those weekly runs, and we started to say the names of those guys we were remembering. And when that unit came home from that deployment, we realized that they needed the same things that we needed: the space to heal, to grieve, to connect. And that's where Wear Blue, Run to Remember was born.
Many people will be listening to this today as they participate in the Allied Forces Run. You talk about the power of taking purposeful steps and running together. So why is that powerful?
I think that's what makes this run, this Allied Forces Run, so special. We've had so few step up on behalf of so many. And today is the day that we come together in this shared understanding of service and sacrifice, and this shared space of ensuring that the men and women who have given their lives for our freedoms are never forgotten. It's a powerful way to pay homage to these men and women, and it's a powerful gift to give the families and friends of those who lost their heroes.
As I mentioned, as people started listening today, each Wear Blue Run starts with a circle of remembrance. And Dave Leach just led us in a virtual one as we got started. But tell us a little bit more about what that circle looks like and its significance.
A Wear Blue Circle of Remembrance is the bringing together of the community. And for me and my local Wear Blue gatherings, it's service members, veterans, survivors, and their families, and the communities who support them coming together in this shared space. In each of these circles of remembrance, we speak the names of the guys and gals who passed away on that weekend since September 11th. And then we open it up to the broader community to speak the names of the fallen service members who they are honoring with their steps. And it's a powerful connection of generations of service, generations of sacrifice. And it's a place where we choose to live inspired by life rather than broken by tragedy.
Of course, we've heard from Dave already, but maybe you can give him a proper introduction before he joins us again. Tell us about Dave Leach.
Dave Leach, aviator, retired colonel, United States Army, is an incredible Wear Blue leader and an even more incredible friend. I am so honored for him to share his Wear Blue journey and to highlight these important stories.
Hey, thanks for that incredible introduction, Lisa. Really been an honor and great fun working with you over the past several years with Wear Blue. Wear Blue's weekly community gatherings are in person, but today for this virtual event, as you're taking your purposeful steps and listening to the podcast from the live stream in the Allied Forces Run Facebook group, please share a selfie or make a comment and let us know where you're joining us from and your connection to service is. And be sure to use the hashtags, hashtag Allied Forces Run to Remember and hashtag Wear Blue Run to Remember.
Of course, regular listeners of this podcast know we love photos of our time outside, so it won't come as a galloping shock that we're asking for photos. We can't wait to see them from around the globe. So Dave, we're going to hear stories of service today from Amazon employees worldwide, but before we do that, I was wondering if you could share your own Wear Blue story of service.
Yeah, I tell you, I was on a year-long deployment to Afghanistan in 2012. We were actually finishing up the deployment. Towards the end of the year, we woke to see the headline of the military newspaper, the Stars and Stripes, and the headline read, Afghanistan, the Forgotten War. And I tell you, that really troubled me because almost nightly, we myself and almost everyone on our base there in Kandahar would go over to the airfield and participate in what they called ramp ceremonies. And here we would line a path to a waiting cargo aircraft, and a unit or units would bring their fallen service members to the aircraft for their final journey home. As we stood there in the dark, waiting for the units to arrive, you couldn't help but think about the fallen service member. Then they would read the name of the individual and their age and where they came from. I couldn't help but think of the family who had received the initial notification and they were waiting for their loved one to come home. So to read that headline, that somehow we had forgotten what our men and women were doing overseas was incredibly troubling to me. When I came back to my base in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, a friend of mine who had been stationed out at Joint Base Lewis McChord and actually knew Lisa, told me about Wear Blue and that they were starting a chapter there at Fort Bragg and thought I'd be interested. So in November of 2012, myself and my family went out to the inaugural running, the Wear Blue Circle of Remembrance and Saturday Run, and we've been volunteering and running with the organization ever since.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. Yeah, it's incredible to hear how people get involved in Wear Blue with these stories just like yours, this really important connection to that fellowship almost of service. Like, we need to know that other people are serving alongside us, and we can see that in person at Wear Blue community events. And they're one of the other amazing things about them is what you said earlier about the fallen fighting and families. So we're there to remember the names, and we're running to honor the fighting, and we're running to honor and really lift up the families. And we're doing that through purposeful, inspirational living and these purposeful steps. And there's something so incredibly powerful about knowing that, one, we are not forgotten in our service and in our community. And we see that through the civilian members and allies, really, who come alongside us to make this happen. And two, then having that community experience where we're moving forward together. You know, in the U.S. on November 11th, we celebrate Veterans Day, which is honoring all veterans and celebrating all military service. But of course, November 11th hasn't always been called that. Prior to 1954, the U.S. instead marked the day as Armistice Day, which honored the end of World War I and, of course, the huge, tremendous sacrifice of life during that conflict. And the United Kingdom and Canada continue to honor November 11th with ceremonies and traditions as Remembrance Day today. So if people aren't familiar with Remembrance Day, we've asked Jillian Russell, a principal program manager with Amazon Global Military Affairs, to help us today explain it. She's a UK Navy veteran, married to a UK Royal Navy officer, and based in the US at Norfolk, Virginia. And she's going to explain the importance of Remembrance Day to us. So here's Jillian.
Remembrance Day is a memorial day observed in many Commonwealth of Nations countries to honour members of the armed forces who died in the line of duty. In most countries, Remembrance Day is observed at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, as this marks the time in the United Kingdom when the armistice, or cessation of hostilities at the end of the First World War, became effective. In the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, the service of remembrance starts with the sounding of the last post, followed by a 1 or 2 minute silence, and concludes with the sounding of Reveille. The national remembrance services in the United Kingdom and Canada are held at their cenotaphs, where wreaths of poppies are laid by members of the royal family, politicians, veterans, and their families.
Dave, you can really hear in Jillian's voice just how important this day is to her. And today, actually, we're joined by many Asian Pacific runners and walkers, many of whom hold their own traditions for honoring veterans and the fallen. Like in Australia and New Zealand, for example, Anzac Day is honored in April, and in Indonesia, they honor Veterans Day in August. South Korea recognizes theirs in October. So I want to make sure that everyone listening knows that no matter when their nation's veterans are recognized and whatever that recognition day is held, we really stand with them in honor of that service internationally.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And, frequently we ask, what do the military members want? Or are they, do they want anything? And I can assure you that the only thing they really truly want is that the recognition that their service mattered. And it's not for anything grand or majestic. It's just the fact that their service and the service of their friends and fellow service members mattered in what they were doing. So that's incredible that, across the globe that the celebrations and recognition ceremonies occur.
Yeah, it's a universal experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's right also, because service isn't just important to honor those who died, but also to celebrate those that serve and to remind us to live a life worthy of the sacrifice of both those who have fallen and those who continue to serve. It reminds us of the importance of lifting each other up as we move forward. Yeah, so let's go ahead and bring in Bill Kalogerakis from Toronto, Canada, to share his perspective on that.
Hello, bonjour. My name is Bill Kalogerakis from YYZ4 in Toronto. I served for 40 years in the Canadian Army Reserves, most of it in the artillery. What I enjoyed most of my service was the camaraderie, the can-do attitude of my fellow soldiers, knowing that, despite all the difficulties we encountered, they had my back as much as I had theirs. Ce jour de souvenir, comme les autres avant, je vais prendre le temps à réfléchir à tous les 118 000 jeunes Canadiennes qui ont donné leur vie en service pour le Canada et pour la paix. Merci, thank you.
What I really love about Bill's story is that it shows just how much moving forward with others can inspire you to move forward too. It's a rising tide lifts all boats situation. And it's actually one of the reasons I really love this other story from Amazonian Jessica Hauser, who is running in Happy Valley, Oregon, and sent us her thoughts about why it's so important to have inspiration behind movement and a supportive community there to make it happen. And, it's especially true when it comes to like pushing through tough conditions, not unlike those she says she faced during a recent deployment. So Jessica is actually a plant-based ultramarathoner. She's an Air Force reservist, and she's a Wear Blue runner. And here is what she shared.
My name is Jessica Hauser. I serve in the United States Air Force Reserve. What does it mean to belong to a supportive community? I joined the United States Air Force in 2016. I was searching for a way to be a part of something larger than an individual contributing level. I was searching for purpose, passion, and pride. What I found was the most supportive community. My passion for running had only been born a few years prior to my enlistment. And when I joined the military, I found a home that turned my community and health passion into purpose. I am a military run coach and a fitness program manager, and I will never stop feeling that between the running community and the military community, that I'm helping to inspire healthy habits in the most necessary way. I'd like to share a story from my recent deployment to Qatar. How do you inspire military members deployed into a hardworking desert environment to go for a run in the summer conditions, which was a daily average of 98 to 110 degrees? How do you possibly help energize the community to show up to your spin class with no AC? It's the power of a supportive community. I dedicated every single run, group run, and spin class to make it count. Make our time on deployment productive to the larger mission. Make our free time productive in fitness so we can always be fit to fight. And to make showing up to workouts motivated by dedicating the effort to those who can't. From my time in service, moments where I see the military members during fitness efforts on the ledge, where in their mind they're borderline ready to quit or reduce effort, are the most important. We are always stronger than we think we are. And moments where you have the opportunity to remind someone of that is continuously inspiring. I am proud to dedicate my marathon running to the fallen, to the fighting, and for the resilient families.
I really feel like hearing stories like Jessica's is such an inspirational way to tackle whatever it is we have going on in our day-to-day life. And I think that's especially true for anybody who's listening to this and is running or walking this Allied Forces run while listening to this right now. If you started when we started this episode rolling, you're well into working your way through it. So I want to bring in another story or two sent to us by Amazonians. And then I have an interview for you to hear from someone who did this run last year, is doing it again this year, and has really let it push him towards living inspired since then. All right, but first, we're going to hear from Jeremy Valdez, an Amazonian in the Seattle area. Jeremy has a huge variety of experience in the U.S. Army, but what you really hear in this clip is the way service is deeply meaningful to him because of what he carried out of it and because of what he did through it.
My name is Jeremy Valdez. I am retired Chief Warrant Officer 3 from the U.S. Army. I deployed to Afghanistan 6 times, Central and South America, to Bolivia, Peru, Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, and all over the place. What I like most about my service is I get to travel the world, I get to meet interesting people, but in Special Forces, I get to do a lot of things through other partner forces and really help communities that I would have never been able to help. And then also learn from those experiences and really grow myself. And I am in a completely different place in life now after I retired than I would have been if I didn't join the Army. So my service means everything to me. It shaped who I am and how I got here. It gave me the life that I lived, the great life I lived, lots of experience. I met my wife in Afghanistan, and from that, my family and kids, and I wouldn't be where I am without my service. So grateful for the opportunity to serve the nation and serve with a great bunch of individual men and women all over the world. And so I just appreciate my time in service.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? That you can just hear in his voice the appreciation he has for not just the experiences, but the lessons that he learned and that he's brought forward in his life as a retired service member. Yeah, and Jeremy's story is so relatable because the majority of service members get so much from serving the military. They've joined for whatever reason, whether it's economic, job, training, college program, or what have you, service to country. But what they quickly realized is that by joining and serving, they become something much larger than themselves. And you heard Jeremy mention that, you get to travel and meet people and help others. And, you may not think of that naturally, when you think of military service, but that is very, very much a part of what happens. And service members gain so much from that. They gain so much from their experience, both in their work and where they go, but also mostly from who they interact with and serve with. And I just think that's an incredible story for him to share with us. And before you introduce that final inspirational story, let's bring in one more. This is Bo Higgins. I had the opportunity to meet Bo in Tampa 2 years ago, and he's part of the Amazon's military affairs team. He's with us today from Tampa. Since leaving the Marine Corps, Bo's been an active leader in building supportive communities for our veterans and ensuring that the sacrifices of our military and first responders are not forgotten.
Bo Higgins here, proud member of the Wear Blue team and 25-year Marine Corps veteran. I had the privilege to serve 3 tours in Iraq, 3 tours in Afghanistan, a tour in Somalia, and a tour in Bosnia, all of which I'm very proud of. But the moment in my military career that I'm most proud of occurred during Hurricane Katrina. I'm from New Orleans, and the Marines that came to town from Hurricane Katrina actually went to my dad's house the day he was cleaning out the house and helped him out. He was a Marine himself, and he was never more proud than when the Marines came to help him out during Katrina. He actually had the Marine Corps flag flying that day. And again, I think that was one of the greatest days of my life, to see the Marine Corps kind of give back to my dad. So proud to be part of the Wear Blue team. Semper Fidelis.
Bo is so clearly proud of his service in the Marine Corps. He's also proud to be a part of a community of service. And that's really something we see all the time in Wear Blue, that service matters, that remembering matters, but also that living in community and pushing each other forward is a vital part of living an inspired life. So Dave, now I want to share this really incredible journey of Ryan Wells. Ryan is a former Royal Marine Commando who now lives just outside London, where he is a technical program manager for Amazon. And since January of 2022, he's been tackling 12 miles every month, raising money for the UK-based veteran support nonprofit Walking with the Wounded, and sharing his own veteran story. His run series is a 12 by 12, a 12-mile event each month for 12 months, named in honor of the 12 by 12 tent the Royal Marines operated out of in Afghanistan. And Ryan hopped on a call with me recently to talk about that journey. Here's that conversation. Ryan, thanks for joining me on this Allied Forces Run episode of Humans Outside. Can you start by telling me a little bit about your military service?
So I left school in the UK at 17 years old and joined the Royal Marines in January 2002. Obviously, it's one of the longest basic trainings in the world. So after 30 weeks, unfortunately, through an injury, I passed that in November. And then spent some time at Royal Marines Poole. From there, I moved on to vehicle mechanics course, where I was an engineer. And then from there, I deployed across 4 Afghanistans, the Herrick tours. So I did Herrick 5, 9, 12, and 17, where I worked alongside some American counterparts, Estonians, and obviously various other nations that were supporting the Operation Freedom out there.
And you participated in last year's Allied Forces run with Wear Blue Run to Remember. So maybe tell us about what inspired you to take on this 12 by 12 challenge that's almost a half marathon per month.
So after the Wear Blue to Remember run I took part in, I also took part in the Walking with the Wounded, which is a UK-based charity. They do a segment of their charity they do called Walking Home for Christmas. So I walked between the first Amazon site that I joined when I left the military to the site I was based at the time, which was just under 18 miles. And that was done with 3 other veterans and what we have at Amazon Warriors, someone called it an ally as well, who's not a veteran himself, but they're just like a military supporter and wanted to be involved. And while we were on the walk, it was just quite nice just chatting how military people do, a little bit of dark humour, a little bit of moaning about the weather. And me, I said, "Oh, this is quite good. I'd do it every month." So the guys challenged me, so we'll do it then. So that's where I am now. Well, 10 months in, I've just finished October on this weekend gone.
Awesome. And your final 12 by 12 event will be in December. So talk to us about where you're finishing your 12 by 12 journey, because it's not where you've been doing most of the event.
No, so a lot of the events have been from Amazon sites throughout the UK. One of the events, I thought I was going to be able to postpone it. It was actually out in Greece for my 3rd anniversary with my wife, which is where we got married. And she packed my running stuff for me as well, which I was really happy about. So I've done one in Greece as well. That was the hardest one so far. Well, it was I think it was 28 degrees and it was about 60-70% humidity. So I had to start at like 5 in the morning, but I had a nice pool and beers to get over it. So my wife's father, he lives in California in Livermore, and we're going to be over there for Christmas. And I'll be doing my last run out of the Amazon site, which is DFO3, which is just on the east side of Livermore itself in California.
And a Wear Blue community will be joining you there for that, as well as other Amazon warriors, right?
Yeah, because of the significance of doing the original Wear Blue in the UK last year in the December, I thought it'd be fitting to. So I plan to start the run wearing my Walking with the Wounded t-shirt, and then I'll be finishing in my Wear Blue to Remember t-shirt.
That's great. So as we get ready to close out this Allied Forces run today, and listeners are walking and running and probably getting ready to end their 5K right now as we're talking, can you tell us why taking purposeful steps helps you live an inspired life? What is it about this that moves you?
I think it's a good way to remember. If, like me personally, when I run, I don't really listen to music. I like to just run and like listen to my thoughts, if you like. And it's always a good time to reflect and remember like people who aren't with us anymore, people who are still serving, and like any close shaves you had yourself, so you can be grateful to be here at the same time. And that's one of the things that I always use as a driver when it does get a bit hard, or if you get into a hill that you don't think you can get up. I think in the British military, we have a thing where it says have a word with yourself, use those motivations to get over the hill.
And I feel like that's a driver that carries outside of just running or just being out there doing a movement event, that's something that you can use in your everyday life, when you're at work, when you're with your family, whatever. Do you find that to be true as well?
Oh, 100%. And I think it's just one of those special talents that ex-military people and people who have like military spouses, obviously they can get forgotten quite a lot. I think it's something that we all hold in common across like nationary borders. We all have that same military commonality of like strength of mind and the need to like carry on.
Ryan, thanks so much for sharing your journey with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in California.
Military members and veterans know the significance of bugle calls as part of military life. Our UK, Australian, New Zealand, and Canadian runners today who are marking Remembrance Day may be hearing the bugle call, the last post, in a remembrance ceremony. This call may signify the end of the day's activities, but like taps in the U.S., it is also sounded at military funerals and at commemorative services such as Anzac Day and, of course, Remembrance Day. Here's a recording of Corporal Matthew Creek of Australia's Royal Military College Band playing The Last Post. Now, you're probably at the end of your run walk. So as we close out this run and Humans Outside bonus episode, having heard these stories and learned more about how veterans are honored around the world, Lisa Hallett, Wear Blue's co-founder, is back with us with some final thoughts. Lisa, you've been hearing these stories and have spent the last decade really learning firsthand what it means to wear blue, not just by watching others, but by living it yourself. So as we close this out, can you just lay out what you see as the connection between remembering and honoring sacrifice and inspired living in the now?
I think for families like mine, I know for my family, there's not a day that goes by that we don't think about our loved ones, the friends who we've lost downrange. And, as my children get older, there's so many milestones that their dad has missed because of his sacrifice. But on Veterans Day, and this day of remembrance, it's a day that we don't remember alone. And so there is power here as so many, literally around the world, come together with those who intimately know service and sacrifice and join us in remembrance. It is a gift to know we don't remember alone. And there's power in seeing, if you will, purposeful steps taken to ensure that these heroes are never forgotten and that the legacies of their lives live in how we live today.
What do you hope runners and walkers take away from this Allied Forces run today, no matter where they are in the world?
Here's the deal. Listen, it is incredible coming together as a community. We are always stronger when we had shared purpose. And so today, not only do we have shared purpose, we have shared purpose, shared breath, shared step. And I think at the heart of it, our fallen deserve to be remembered vibrantly, wholly, and not in the shadows of their death, but in the light of their lives. And so today, let these steps be the foundational movement for how you choose to live vibrantly, wholly, and in the light of the example of these brave men and women.
Thank you so much for joining us today on this journey. If you're in the Allied Forces Run Facebook group, don't forget to post a selfie of your run there or to social media wherever you are. Use hashtag Allied Forces Run to Remember and hashtag Wear Blue Run to Remember. A special thanks, of course, to Amazon Global Military and the Warriors at Affinity Group for sharing their stories with us and making the Allied Forces Run possible. And for those Humans Outside listeners who joined me in this special bonus episode today, I hope it pushes you to live inspired, taking purposeful steps to honor the fighting, fallen, and families. Until next time, we'll see you out there.